Good morning. How are we doing? I'm delighted to be a part of this event. The celebration of Canada's 150th birthday as a nation is something that Canadians from coast to coast will certainly embrace and enjoy. And so they should. Birthdays are for cake and parties and getting together with loved ones. It should be fun on July 1st, 2017. But in the days leading up to that important day in our history, we also have a chance to pause. Pause to contemplate how fortunate we are to live in Canada, in Nova Scotia. Pause to appreciate and understand how we got to be better off than 90% of the folks living on the planet. And pause to be aware of exactly where we are today as a province and a country. And to invest time to think deeply and strategically about where we go from here. What do we want Canada to look like 10 years, 50 years, and 100 years from now? Are we actually consciously creating the future that we want? Are we filled with the hope and the possibility of a greater Canada tomorrow than we have today? Perhaps I have a different view of the past, the present, and the future than many of you in this room. You see, I'm an immigrant. Now a proud Canadian. I was born in Scotland and landed in Toronto as a 10-year-old, unhappy as I could be at leaving my friends and family behind. But you see, the thread mills in my hometown of Paisley, where my father had worked since serving 4 years in the Battle of World War II, were closing. Not because people were buying less thread, but because it was cheaper to make that thread in Mexico and Asia. That was the biggest industry in our town, and the future looked bleak. But in the midst of all of that difficulty, my mother and father were more concerned about what the future might hold for my brother and me than about themselves. Finding a sponsor that was required in those days, they left family, friends, and modest belongings behind to land in snowy Toronto and to live in the Patterson family's basement for a year and a half till my mother and father could find work and were finally able to rent our first one-bedroom apartment. My mother and father came in pursuit of possibility. The possibility that the future that my brother and I might have would be better than theirs. The story was the same for my wife's grandmother, who with 6 children, including my future mother-in-law, literally walked out of Hungary in 1949, leaving everything behind but the clothes on their back and what they could carry, to make a 2-year trek that ended on a ship out of Germany and landed in Halifax, just for the opportunity to board a train in search of work on the farms in Western Canada, all to make a better life for the future generation. I'm filled with gratitude for the sacrifices of my parents and millions like them, made to create a Canada that might provide me with possibilities and opportunities. It has been that way for our first 148 years as a nation, as well as in the 500 years since the Brits and Europeans started landing on these shores, and in the thousands of years before that the native peoples forged a life for themselves and their families from this rugged, beautiful, and bountiful Canada. Think about the lives they led compared to ours today, all with the dream of possibility of a better future. So this morning I'm asking you to pause, reflect, and appreciate the many hardships that our forefathers and mothers endured for the sake of future generations such as ourselves. My question is there anywhere in our being a lingering desire to follow their example, to create a world that will be better for our children and our grandchildren than we have today. Our life here in Nova Scotia and across Canada is a privileged and wonderful life. It's good. But as Jim Collins says, good is the enemy of great. Are we too concerned with holding on to our own little comfortable or not so comfortable space at the expense of not making time to think about how do we create a better future for our children and grandchildren? Are we so filled with fear of failure and fear of loss that we will not risk anything for the possibility of an even better future? Have we lost the concept of sacrifice for the greater good? Is there even a discussion about the greater good around our dinner tables, boardrooms, and communities? Not to mention our willingness and ability to transform our workplaces into centers of personal responsibility, excellence, and constant innovation that are focused on superior results. I live for the most part in the world of business. And so, in the years ahead, we must engage in conversations about creating great Canadian companies. The dialogue has already begun at Dalhousie Business School, and I'm sure at others around the country, about how to create visionary leadership and management capable of executing with excellence. It's a much-needed discussion about how we create business leaders that function from a place of integrity, who are searching for a deeper sense of wisdom, who are as interested in the needs of their customers and employees as they are in their analytics and balance sheets. Leaders who are committed to creating real value for customers and generating real profits from those products and services. Not enamored with the ideas of getting wealthy at the expense of others through speculation, through shorts and derivatives and other such activities that feed a mentality that is more about getting mine and contains an insatiable desire for more things than one can practically use. And when I speak of employees' needs, I don't mean finding ways to make staff happy. My experience is that every employee, including me, is looking for satisfaction and inspiration. The satisfaction that comes with knowing what you do, that what you do matters to the success of the company. The satisfaction that comes when the whole team has a clear sense of purpose, and the satisfaction that comes with accomplishment of goals and co-creating the future. For after all, the best way to predict the future is to create it. The Canadian business community must do better. We need to create globally competitive companies in more areas than the natural resource sector. Canada consistently ranks in the top 3 in the G20 of academic R&D and consistently ranks in the bottom 3 in that commercialization of research. Our future must be as the global commercialization experts. At Ocean Nutrition, we spent more money on R&D than our next 4 competitors combined, and more on innovative customer-based marketing than our next 2 competitors combined. These concepts made us a global leader in our field, and in the USA, we had a 60% market share, and our biggest competitor had 12. Commercialization of globally competitive technology and savvy, insightful, customer-focused marketing is what will change our economic future for the better. In Nova Scotia, we have the highest taxes in the country, among the highest energy costs, and the highest per capita debt, and a demographic profile of an aging population and a shrinking rural economy. I make these statements not with any judgment or anger or a need to place blame. Any good strategy for the future requires that we tell the truth about where we are, to own that truth. And the solutions will not be found in the same level of thinking that created this situation. That's part of the truth. The other part is we, as Kevin Lynch said, have unlimited potential. But it's just that, potential, not entitlement. We must unlock that potential. We live in an awesome country with strong values around human dignity and fairness We have a desire for peace between all human beings and a love of free markets, free speech, and freedom of worship. We, more than most, should be able to figure out how to make capitalism with a conscience work if anyone can. We just need to get over ourselves. I'm personally concerned about the future my grandchildren will find. What will be the legacy of our generation? Will it be better for them? It's ours to choose and to create. And so as we begin our dialogue on what next or where we go from here, it is my view that we have to rededicate ourselves to more selfless action. Give more than we take. Dedicate ourselves to pausing in our ever faster, sensory-bombarded world, taking a purposeful pause and being awake to the possibility of a deeper and collective wisdom that can transform our future for the better. Pausing, as Viktor Frankl said, between the constant stimulus and unconscious responses to really choose. That space between stimulus and response is where true choice, true freedom, and wisdom live. We need to rededicate ourselves to the creation of great communities that work for and include everyone. To rededicate ourselves to finding new political and government structures that work efficiently in the 21st century and creating the best educated citizenry on the planet. To rededicate ourselves to creating better, faster growing, more competitive companies that are able to attract the best and the brightest from around the world. My challenge to you and to me this morning is to think less about ourselves and more about others and those that will come behind us. My challenge for you is to be more engaged in whatever way works for you and on whatever projects for the greater good are meaningful to you. Let's not leave it to somebody else. Having offered these challenges, I leave you with the famous words of George Bernard Shaw. Shaw said, "This is the true joy in life, being used for a purpose recognized by yourself as a mighty one, the being a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world would not devote itself to making you happy. I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community, and as long as I live, it is my privilege to do for it what I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die, for the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no brief candle for me. It is a sort of splendid torch, which I've got a hold of for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations." Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Robert.